Well, everyone, thanks for coming and joining us for this webinar. If you're not familiar with Chimirus, we specialize in professional coaching and training for the design, 3D, and motion world, and we're dedicated to helping you to accelerate in your creative careers to achieve world-class success. So welcome to Master Your Game Portfolio. Again, thanks for joining us. We'll have a Q&A later. We'll go over the questions and stuff that you have, so feel free to add them to the chat box there. A little bit about myself. I'm Dave Pasciuto. I'm the founder of Chimirus, and I've had a long career of 25 years of working in animation, visual effects, video games, and in the advertising world, doing a whole bunch of stuff. I'm still an active concept artist. In fact, I just wrapped up working with Roger Angel Game, and
Hey everybody, I recognize the majority of you that are here, so thank you again, as Dave was saying, for coming back and joining us. This is really a special time for us because, you know, we both, Dave and I, have come from the game industry. Travis is knee deep in the game industry, and we really want to be able to kind of share our knowledge and be able to kind of help guide your portfolio to that next level. I'm still doing illustration. I'll do 2D UI work, and I have a history in 3D environment work in video games, mobile games, and even slot games for the past about 20 plus years as well. My history is about 15 AAA games and a ton of mobile games to kind of back everything up. So other than that, it's basically I'm an old man in the industry doing a lot of stuff. Yeah, but the actual past 10 years, I've really focused on teams and building studios and leadership and trying to run an efficient team. And that's kind of where we have a lot of the experience that comes from our day-to-day in terms of what hiring managers are possibly looking for when it comes to a portfolio, when it comes to submissions and things like that. So Dave, do you want to tell us about the purpose of the webinar?
Yeah, so just to add to that, we've kind of been through our careers where we started out as entry level. We've gained experience working on tons of games. We became leads, and eventually now we hire. And so we really run the gamut of being kind of in the start, in the middle, and almost at the end of where careers go. So the purpose of the webinar is basically to share our knowledge and our experience with the aspiring artist community in games, and help answer lots of questions that you have. Kind of like how do you know if your portfolio is strong enough? What do you do to make your work stand out? Do you have anxiety about the competition? And see how we can help you to achieve your career goals if you're trying to get in to the industry, or if you're moving up a level as becoming a lead, or switching jobs and getting into the industry through another avenue. So we're kind of here for you for that stuff, and we wanted to bring our knowledge to that.
Yeah, and I think if we want to kind of lead into a little bit of the story part of our experiences, when you kind of start in the industry, it's one of those things where everybody wonders how you do it, and it's different for everybody. These days, I think there's a lot more opportunity. There's a lot more ability to be visible. But back when I had started, I literally, and this is how I know Dave and Travis, I literally took Dave's old job. He used to work at a place called New Effects, and he'll tell you a little bit how he got there as well. But when he left to go to LA, I applied for a job that he had left. But I did not know Dave. I had no idea who Dave was yet at all. Yeah, I know. But the reason I got referred that job is because my schoolmate, who I used to just sit down and doodle with, Eric, he was the one that got a job where Dave used to work. And at the time when Dave had left, they were looking for a UI concept artist to work on an NBA basketball game. And it was the first opportunity I ever had. I was doing web design for the first year out of school, and somebody asks me, "Hey, do you want to do video games?" I just said yes, but I didn't even know what it was for. But it was one of those opportunities that you just don't let go by. But since that point, all the people that I've met in industry has made a really big impact on how we connect, and then the progress of my career. So ultimately, the people that you meet and the people that you work beside with, the people that you go to school with, ultimately be cool with them, show them that you work hard, because they'll always remember you. And that's literally how I got my first gig, because somebody remembered what I used to do in school and the efforts that I put there. So it was a turning point moment. So Dave and I always kind of talk about reminding people about that is one of the key aspects for breaking in. And then, shortly thereafter, a handful of years down the road, when I got my job at WMS, that's literally how I met Travis. I hired him onto our art team. So now we're full circle back around today. And I'll hand it over to Dave for his fancy stories.
Yeah. So my story was basically, I applied for a job on a job board when I was going to community college. And this is, back in the day where like the internet was very new and there wasn't job boards for that. So there was a physical job board with a piece of paper on it with a phone number saying, hey, do you want a job at games? And I was like, okay, this sounds interesting. And obviously I love playing games, so I thought it would be a cool thing. So I walked into this studio that was in this old like abandoned grocery store almost, and they were a third-party developer for Sega Genesis games. And I brought my giant, it was like a, 36 by 24 leather-bound book of drawings, and I had some experience with computers then, and my portfolio was on like a 3.5 floppy disk, and they kind of hired me on the spot. But that's obviously a different time, and since then I've even had to revamp my portfolio many times for different jobs and different industries, and that's just something that we want to help bring to you. And to help even further, we have a real live concept artist here for you, which we have Travis Overstreet. So he's a friend and also super talented dude who just knows the gamut of the game industry. So I'm gonna hand it over to Travis Overstreet.
Yeah, I'm super real and super alive. Real. Yeah, hey, I'm Travis Overstreet. I currently working at EA, senior concept artist. Been doing art in some various form in like advertising, effects, games, film the last like 10 years. And kind of specializing in 2D art and modeling with a little bit of animation here or there, just some extra bits and bobs to fill out kind of that generalist role.
Cool. Awesome, Travis. Well, actually, why don't you tell us a little bit about your journey to EA? Like, how did you end up getting there? I've obviously knew you before then, and I know you had goals to hit AAA gaming. But yeah, tell us about how you got from here to there.
Yeah, so I got I got my bachelor's in painting and sculpture at just a public university, traditional art, and then I went and did a graduate program at SCAD Atlanta, which is Savannah College of Art and Design, for folks who don't know, and did the graduate animation program there. I got about a year and a half in, and then we had an ad agency that actually did a class with us at SCAD, and at the end of the class, they hired me and two other students in that class. So that's how I kind of got my start. I left grad school so we got the job, because the whole point of grad school for me, I wasn't going to be paying money to go to grad school and I have what I needed. So after that, I worked that job for a while, and then they got rid of our CG team that I was on. So I needed to find something new. So I started applying all over the place and landed at SG, Scientific Games in Chicago. Roger, like I said before, hired me. Moved up to Chicago, got me into games, worked there for about 3 years, and I jumped to a company called Every in Chicago, another slot game company. Worked there for about a year. In that time, I moved from senior artist to lead artist, and because of that, I got noticed by a startup in the UK that was doing slot games, and then they hired me as art director. Did that for a year, worked remotely, got to work from home, which was really nice. And then because we're working from home, I was able to build up a portfolio, focus on personal work, and was able to secure a job at EA through a former coworker that actually used to work with me and Roger, named Maria. So moved out here in January and just got started.
Awesome.
Yeah. So actually, there's some really common threads to Travis's story. I know Travis's goal had been to break into AAA, and he spent a lot of his efforts and time navigating that. And you guys heard the journey. But if we all look back, Travis, myself, and Dave have all worked for EA at one point. He does now, and Dave and I did previously. So it's a really small world. Honestly, when I was at EA, I was just telling you guys about the story about like how I took Dave's old job. He went to LA, and I had no idea who he was. I just knew that I took his job because I had his old files I was working with, and it had his names on at the end of every single file. But he wanted to come back to Chicago, and this is when the company that I was working for got bought by EA. So we went from becoming NewFX to like EA Chicago. He came back, and he literally walked into my room and smashed my Kleenex box. I don't even know why I'm still friends with him right now, but that brings us all the way back around to how we connected. And from that point on, when EA Chicago, if you guys all know the history of that place, it started out as NewFX, it became EA Chicago, went real big, and then eventually, during times where like things were readjusting, the studio changed over, and then eventually Dave and I found ourselves at Robomoto together. After that, I went to Scientific Games, and that's how I met Travis. And Travis met Maria through Scientific Games. Maria now is at EA, and Maria referred Travis all the way back. And now Travis is in AAA games, and we're all connected. So,
yeah, definitely. I mean, the importance of connection is kind of, most of the battle. It's like talent will get you there. Your personality is another part, and then like, who your friends are and like where they're working, because like-minded people kind of travel together. So like depending on the opportunities that popped up, like Roger said, like when I moved on to Robomoto, like we needed someone there, we brought Roger on. And then when Roger was over at Scientific Games, he brought Travis, and then again Marie was over at EA and then brought Travis. So it's kind of like this whole circle of how this works, and that's kind of how the industry works for sure.
Yeah, and that's part of what we're a part of what we're doing as well. We're like Chimirus, you guys obviously are aware, we're building a community, and within the community, you meet each other and you kind of understand where each other comes from. You see each other's work, and then with that, we try to do our best to kind of help propel you into the jobs that you want. That being said, I'll go back to Travis. It's enough of Dave and I talking. Really, truly want to hear from Travis, senior concept artist at Electronic Arts. Travis, what skills do you feel are the most important in a game artist?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously your basic art skills, like your fundamentals, are key. Your design principles are super key. But in addition to that, like right now, 3D is just super necessary. Like everybody should have at least a base understanding of 3D, at least a little bit familiar with it. It helps with it helps with creating bases to paint on, to drawing. It just helps you be a more valuable asset in the team. And then also drawing obviously is super key. Like having strong drawing skills, and basically, whether you're a modeler or concept artist, maybe a little less so for tech artists or your animators or something like that. Like you could spend more time focusing on more like your coding skills, your tech skills versus like drawing. But I think for anyone in the heavier art end of things, drawing is hugely valuable. It helps you be able to focus or be able to communicate your ideas quicker and a little bit more clearly. And then the other one that I think that gets kind of left out is your what are called soft skills, your people skills. How you navigate the office, how you take feedback, how you give feedback. Are you fun? Are you pleasant to work with? Do people like having you around? How can you navigate like social situations?
Yeah, I mean, you could be the best artist, and if you don't have like the ability to work with somebody else, nobody's going to reach back out to you to reconnect. So that is like one of the things that is very important, but is never really talked about. So great reason for bringing it up, Travis.
Yeah, so this is something that we cover in our coaching, where creating art's only part of working on the team, but like collaborating, taking feedback, and communication, and like interviewing, and like all these things is what we kind of help coach with, but it's also a huge part of the job. So like drawing is one thing, doing the art is one thing, and then like your personality and how you fit in and everything else is another part. And kind of navigating how you work with teams is definitely something that is not really taught anywhere, but it's something that we can help with. So getting back to Travis and down to meat and potatoes here. So should you specialize in a skill or should you be a generalist? Like there's a lot of questions around that, and give us your input on that, your wisdom.
I mean, both are fine. They both work. It just depends, right? So if you want to be a specialist, you need to move to the market that can support that. So if you need to move to LA, San Francisco, Seattle, Vancouver, somewhere where there is a large number of companies, a large number of like heavy hitting companies, because they can afford to pay someone to do one specific thing.
Mm.
If you're in a generalized, if you're in a smaller market like Atlanta, Chicago, um, or any other smaller city, you're gonna have issues trying to find like someone that's hiring just a character modeler. Like they need someone that can do 3 or 4 things, and they need more bang for the buck. It's also going to make you super valuable in those areas, just because that is it's a tough person to find that can do it well, that can do multiple things well. So if you can do that, and you're in a small market, you're gonna find that you can make a decent amount of money. You can have a pretty secure job. Not maybe the same place all the time, but you're going to be in demand, which is it's kind of nice. Like you can have a really nice life being a generalist in kind of a small market. It's not bad at all. Or one other option is if you're in a small market, you can't move. You can When you want to be a specialist, you just need to be the best in what you specialize in. You need to be like the best modeler, or like like the top 10. You need to make yourself basically undeniable. You need to be so good that a company can't afford to not pay for you to come out to work at their studio wherever they are.
Indispensable.
Indispensable, yeah. There you go.
Yeah, I mean, to kind of add to that, so when you apply to a place, you kind of have to decide what type of place it is. Like you could do your research online, and that's something that we do a lot of as part of our coaching plan, is to help the person kind of look at what they're trying to get to, and then decide like what that company will be looking for in the person they're trying to hire. For example, in my history of working at smaller companies, I worked at a place called Seven Lights, and it was one of those places where I had to be able to model, I had to be able to concept sketch, and I had to be able to animate, all 3 things, because the team was just 3 people, so you really had to touch all 3 things. When we brought Travis on at Scientific Games, I was building a small digital arts team. And what we had was a limited budget, and we had limited headcount that we could hire for. So my goal was to find somebody that had X amount of skills and with the aspiration to improve on other skills. So when I was hiring, I was looking for somebody that was good at 2D, somebody that could animate, and somebody that had 3D skills. If I got 2 out of those 3 skills, perfect. As long as that last skill they were aspiring to. Travis fortunately hit on all 3 of those skills, so I got really, really lucky. So that was like, but the thing is, when Travis came to our studio and he joined our team, like he was rock star, because he was one of the guys that was able to come in and be able to teach everybody else around him like certain skills that they might not have polished. So his skill set was very high up there. And even after that, like you're only going to have a certain amount of options as a hiring manager. So in smaller places, kind of veer towards understanding like what people might be looking for. Now, when we were working at Electronic Arts, like when Dave and I were working at Electronic Arts, I was always doing just one thing, maybe 1.5 things. I was either a 3D environment artist, and then I was working on mild animations and texturing, or I was doing UI and I was doing a little bit of concept work, but never more than that, because the Electronic Arts of the world has the ability to hire specialized roles. So that's kind of where you have to discern and assess the job that you're looking for, the studio that you're applying to, what they might need. And you could definitely figure that out with research. And that's something that, Dave and I and Chimirus will help you do.
Yeah. And so just to bounce off that a little bit more, like you don't have to be a rock star to like work in the industry. Like obviously that takes time to get there. Like nobody's just like born a rock star and they're amazing at everything. Like these are skills that you build over time. And also like things like when you're building a team, like budgets come into play. You can't always afford a rock star. And we'll get into stuff a little bit more later. But just about skills in general is like over time, when you build these skills up, the more skills that you have, like the more opportunities that will happen for you. Like, because I've done so many different things in like over the course of my industry, like I can do different types of freelance jobs. So like, just working with Roger, I was working for doing environment concept art for a Ninja Turtle game. But before that, I was working on like animation for like Potbelly and just different types of things because of the skills that I've developed over the course of my career. Not all of it just like happening at one time. So this is obviously something that you grow at.
Yeah, definitely. Let's bring it back to Travis, because Dave and I just start talking and we don't want to take over the superstar.
Too much.
Yeah, we don't want to take over the superstar of the panel. So, Travis, how do you know if your skills are good enough for an entry level position? Like,
I, you feel it in your bones. No, I'm just kidding.
Well,
that
yeah.
could be
No, honestly, like this is something that like I think somebody told me, and like after someone told it to me, it sounded so obvious that I felt stupid for not thinking of it ahead of time. It's basically you just need to find people that are working at the places that you want to work at that are in the positions that would be entry position. Find associate level artists or junior artists, or art one, wherever you can find those three titles, those are the artists you should be looking at to see like where what level their work is at, and you could even like look at when they posted certain work versus when they were hired at those entry level positions. You can kind of see like where the portfolio was at a certain time or what piece maybe it was that got them hired. And you can look at that and you can look at your work and you can say, does my work match up? And, be honest with yourself, get other people to give you feedback on it. So it's not just, a biased opinion. And then other than that, just going on and looking at the job description and making sure you can do the core list of things they want you to be able to do. If you can do some of the extras or the nice to have, that'd be great. But also like don't worry too much that you don't hit every single one, because sometimes, most times companies are, they put those descriptions up knowing they're not going to get all of them. They're going to get, maybe 75% of them for a good candidate. So yeah, that's kind of how I would go about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think like to add to that, like Dave was mentioning this before, but like we're always looking for a solid candidate. Like of course, you can land on your dream candidate like Travis. Like I landed on Travis at Scientific Games. All right, awesome. But that's not always going to be the case. We have again have to consider like the circumstances of the situation, and the key is to be really honest about where you're at right now. Because if you can be honest about where you're at, then you can really assess where you need to go. And even when it comes to like putting your portfolio up, there's been a lot of times that I've actually looked at portfolios where I've seen a handful of really strong pieces and a couple of weak pieces, but the strong ones really impressed me. So I did reach out to that candidate to talk to them about it. And I actually really wanted to know, because we were bringing in entry-level candidates, like what would they do to improve that piece? And if they had strong pieces and a weak piece, if they could tell me that they had this plan to move things forward, then already like makes me believe, all right, this person's got a lot of upward potential. This is somebody that I should be investing in. So.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, potential is a lot. So looking at portfolios, like, we've kind of been around enough where we can look at things and know like where you're trying to go with something, or like, what pieces got more time than others. And, like Roger said, it's like it's potential. Like you need foundation, you need some skills, obviously, but part of growing into the career is like your potential of like, well, how do we unlock the power of this candidate and like really bring them to the next level? Do they have the right attitude? Do they have the right mindset to do this kind of thing? So yeah. Potential is a huge thing that is something that we work with you on to uncover like values that you bring. So it's not just, well, they can draw, they can paint, they can model. Like, what are the other soft skills that you bring? What's your potential and your mindset on like getting to the next level?
Yeah, and I think this is a question that a lot of people ask. I'm going to ask you this question, Travis. If you want to be a concept artist, should you learn 3D?
Yeah. I mean, yes. Just yes. That's the answer. Yes. No, I mean, yeah. I mean, there's no reason you shouldn't at this point. It's so accessible. The software's available either for free or via student licenses, and there's so much education material out there, and it's so it's so valuable in enhancing your work, and so just the value in enhancing your own work alone is worth it. But then when you combine that with how valuable it makes you to the team, like it's a win-win. Like you would be silly if you had the time to do it. You'd be silly not to.
Yeah, I completely agree and support that statement. One of the things that we used to talk about on our team was that if you learn 3D, it's only going to help your 2D. Like you never became a worse 2D artist by knowing 3D, or you never became a worse 2D artist by knowing, a worse 3D artist by knowing 2D. They're always going to benefit each other, and they play off each other very, very well.
Yeah. So, all right, Travis, back to you. Now we talked about what makes a great, should you learn 3D? Like, yes, but like what makes a great portfolio?
Okay, so for me, it's pieces that are totally complete, pieces that are 100% finished and polished, um, that shows that you can do the entirety of the job. That you can do, like if you're a character artist, you can make a character from start to finish. You can take it and you don't have to come up with the concept. You can take the concept that you're given, find it online or whatever. You can gather reference. You can block it out. You can build the base model. You can do the high res, the low res, the textures. You can do some basic lighting and presentation. Um, that's key. Be able to do like the full job and show that you can do it well. Um, you know, you can fudge a little bit if you're like, so for example, if you're a character artist again, feel free to push your polygon counts. Go if adding a few more polygons or having a few more textures or a little bit higher res texture makes the piece that much better. Go ahead and push that within reason, because you can do that and get the job interview and then explain it during the job interview, because it just makes you look even smarter, because you're like, okay, well, yeah, I know that technically for a game it would need to be a little bit smaller, a little bit lower res or whatever, but I did this because, and then you explain because, you can expound upon it. So finished pieces, take out, go through your portfolio, take out pieces that aren't totally finished, that don't look totally like you would envision them. If you need to, go in and spend the extra 2-3 weeks to finish it off and make it look good. So in the end, that could get you the job. Other than that, just having something organized and clear, so that when I go to your website, I see work first and I see the kind of work that I'm looking for, and that it's also laid out in kind of an appealing, kind of organized way, right? So like Feng Zhu gave a talk one time. He was talking about how like laying out your pieces in like kind of a color coordinated way, like having the flow of your images nice. That's something that I'm even working on now. But considering your portfolio kind of as a whole and how it looks.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything to add on that one, Roger?
Yeah, so I mean, I think that's what Master Your Portfolio coaching is really here to help you do. Like that's kind of why we're here today, wanting to make sure that the things that you display are of high quality. And like Travis was saying, like we see, Dave and I both have seen a lot of work, like a lot, like so much work that there's sometimes when it comes back around, it's like, oh man, that's back around again, and nothing has changed. It's sad, because like it's one of those things where like if you see enough stuff and you have that kind of experience, it's really easy to kind of offer somebody really like quick pointers and tips that will just kind of get them like noticed at that next level. And that's all it really takes. It's like, I think Travis was saying this before, like, the key is to working on like high quality pieces, right? So if you have a handful of high quality pieces and you know how to arrange them, you know how they're displayed, and the stuff is all showing up right, you're going to get noticed and you'll get that first call. And then after that, you're getting your foot in the door, getting that first call, like you're already ahead of the game. Like that's always the highest hill to climb, getting your stuff in front of somebody and getting somebody to reach back out to you, because they see so much of it, right? So making sure that you are presenting the top-notch stuff and you're noticed is what we're here for. So
yeah, and we've even seen so much work where like we see pieces, like the same pieces in different portfolios, where it's like, wait, I saw this on somebody else's site, like, and then we kind of have to like figure out like what happened there. Like, did they work on the same project?
yeah,
Did they touch the same piece together? Were they working on the same games and all that kind of stuff? So, we've just seen the gamut of things. But so back to Travis here. What do you think the qualities are of a great potential game artist?
Like the biggest things that I look for when I think of like someone that I want to work for, have on my team, would be someone who works smart, they're organized, and when I say work smart, I don't mean they're just intelligent. It's that they think through things, right? So if you're doing something, you're doing something for a reason, right? Like you build you build an animation a certain way using a certain technique, and you know why. You build your Photoshop file a certain way, because you know that further down the line you might have feedback, or you might have to pass it off, and you can turn off certain things easily and turn certain things on very easily. And then other than that, it's just you're open to feedback. You can take feedback and you can act on it in a meaningful way. Like you don't just ignore it, or you don't know how to understand the feedback. You can kind of take it and parse it, and then actually spit something back out that is related to what you just received. And then finally, like one of the things that's becoming more important is just being what I would call a visionary, being someone that pushes the boundaries within a certain area. Like if you're doing 2D concept art or something like that, what kind of new ideas are you bringing to the table? How are you pushing things? Are you maybe using a different technique, or like changing a technique? Those are the things that are important people are looking for, because everybody has access to the same tools now. Everybody can use the same thing. So like, how are you taking these tools and doing something different or significant?
Yeah, I mean, to add to that, one of the things that Travis had mentioned about feedback, having a great attitude when you work with people goes a long way. Like having the attitude of learning, taking things in, making sure that you're considering the feedback that's being given to you, and then listening. Like I think there's a lot, well, honestly, this happened to me in my career a lot when I was younger. I would not take feedback the way I should have. And it was just because, you kind of go in the industry, you start in hot, but you don't have a lot of experience and you feel like what you're doing is right. But the thing is, the majority of the time, if you just sit there a minute and kind of listen to the feedback that's given to you, and then the person giving you the feedback notices that you're taking that in, like they're going to know that like you're intaking and learning from them. And those are the kinds of things that like you don't always know how to receive all the time. It takes, I mean, it's an ego hit when sometimes somebody gives you feedback, but the majority of the time when people give you feedback, when we give you feedback on your portfolio, it's not about ego. It's always about helping you get to that next step. And like, even at this stage of the game, like where I'm at right now, if I'm ever doing a piece, if Dave's ever doing a piece, I'm always going to ask for feedback. And honestly, if they have nothing to say about it, sometimes it actually is that good. But oftentimes, I want you to tell me like those little things to get it that next 15 to 10%, better than it was before. Because, you guys probably know this too. Like when you are diving in and working on a piece, you're like tunnel visioned out. Sometimes you forget about all the little things around it and you have to be able to step back a little bit. Those are the kinds of things that, again, like, with our experience, we will teach you how to do for yourself and teach you how to assess your work in a smarter way. And then also when people come to you with feedback, how to accept it and then channeling that into your work and making it better.
Yeah, like embracing feedback is the best way to get better. Like it happens at all these studios. Like you have like the greatest talent at many of these studios, like you take Blizzard and like whatever, like they're giving each other feedback because it's about making the best possible product, like the best possible piece of art, the best game, the best animation. And it takes people's feedback to achieve that. It's not personal. So that's something that is, something that I had to learn myself. But like, again, it's not feedback. It's not about your personal ability. It's not about your ego. It's about like, hey, how do I make this amazing? Like, what do we need to do to make this amazing? And collaborating with your teammates to achieve that. So, and kind of how that works with your portfolio and the artwork that you're producing is like, at some point, you're going to be compared to somebody else. Like you might be up for an opportunity at a company, but at some point somebody's going to be there with you. It's like, oh, it's either this person or this person. And so what are those things that make you stand out? Like, and it's going to be feedback for one, like, have you shown your peers or other like professionals in, on forums or whatever, or working with coaching to help you push on that. And like that little bit is what's going to help you stand out from the person next to you, is like that feedback, taking it to heart, applying it to your art. And then things like your name and like the branding on your site and like how you're presenting yourself. So good art is associated with your name. So like we should look and be like, oh, that piece was really cool. So-and-so did that. We want to remember those things. So like having a great site experience and, taking the time to consider the lives of really busy people, because the people hiring, everything's always on fire. You're running around trying to solve problems. You're building teams, you're interviewing, you're art directing, you're doing lots of different things. And hiring is just one more thing that you do on top of that. So nobody really wants to hire. It's something that you have to do. But if you consider us in making our lives easier, like we remember things like that, like even things like naming your files like your resume, because when you download 100 resumes and they're all named like resume.pdf, you're like, who is this? You know, and then you have to open it up and it's causing friction in your day. And that's kind of annoying. So that's something that we help the design to smooth out and consider those. And those are little differences that make you stand out against the competition that you have next to you.
Yeah. So Travis, to wrap it up, what are your main words of advice to this community?
I mean, if you're trying to get a job in the game industry currently, treat every piece that you're making like focus on one piece at a time, and treat it like it's the piece that's going to get you your job. Um, spend the time that it takes to make that piece amazing. If it takes an extra 3 weeks or 3 months, the weeks and the months are worth it. If that is the piece that's going to get you noticed. And then also just keep working, keep doing personal work. As soon as you're done with that piece, put it out there. You share it out. You share all the tips and tricks and stuff you learned along the way. As soon as you're done with that, start on the next piece and do the same thing, and just rinse and repeat until you get that job. And I guarantee you. So, like if you end up with enough pieces that you're like having to look at your portfolio and be like, all right, which ones do I put in, which ones do I don't put in? I would be surprised if you follow that kind of rule of thumb of making good pieces and then repeating it. You will not get past like 10 pieces until you get hired. I mean, especially if you're putting out 100% polished work that looks good. The other thing is just look for feedback on those pieces, and as you're working, get feedback from as many sources as you can that you trust. Not your grandma, not your mom, but people that are in the industry, people you respect. People are very open to talking to you and looking at your work. Hit them up on LinkedIn, hit them up however you want. You'd be surprised how friendly and open, like high level people are in the industry to chatting.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with that. My grandma loves my stuff, but she's not going to hire me. She has no ability to pay me a salary either. So, but that being said, we're kind of wrapping up and getting to the end of our interview here. Before we start the open Q&A, we did have a question that was typed in there that I want to address. And I'm going to go round table. So I'll start with Travis and I'll go with Dave. But Finnan wants to know, what company do you both feel are producing the best quality AAA games right now? Travis, I'll start with you.
And
you work at one of them, right? I imagine you're going to...
The stocks that I have bought in EA, I'm going to say EA. No. I would say like either like Naughty Dog is always up really high on my list. Just, I mean, not necessarily because I really love their games. Like their games, for me personally, are okay. It's just not my style. But the attention to detail that they have and the execution that they're able to pull off in their games is pretty stunning. Also, I mean, Rockstar. My wife just started playing Red Dead Redemption 2. I've been watching her play that, and that is just freaking stunning. They're incredible. I feel like I'm going to list a few here. Sony Santa Monica has Ralph Grassetti, who is like one of the best ZBrush sculptors in the game. And they've got a crazy lineup of artists. Their games are beautiful. Again, not my style, not my flavor, but they're gorgeous games. And you know what? The game studio that I like right now, as far as the type of game they're making, the style, and the quality, is probably it's whoever's making Horizon Zero Dawn. I think it's Guerrilla Games, maybe.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, those guys. That game, the gameplay is astounding. The art is beautiful. The concepts are original and the story is original. That's my top.
So one of the things that the audience should know too, Naughty Dog, I completely agree with you there. Naughty Dog does some high quality stuff. I actually really love their games. And it's like a very story-based situation. But anybody at Naughty Dog, if you're going to get a job there, you're going to get an art test. Doesn't matter if you have like 25 years in the industry, 5 years in the industry, you get an art test. And it's actually kind of one of those things where like ego's out the door. We just need to know you make great work. I think when it comes to studios that I really enjoy work from, I'm a big fan just recently of Insomniac. That Spider-Man game was amazing. I mean, all the skins, all the work, all the content. I'm a big fan of like that type of like action third-person style game. I'm a big fan of when they do Rocksteady Batman stuff. I'm a huge fan of that. And then there is actually a game that my wife was actually playing that was like pretty interesting. I forgot the studio, but they do Subnautica. It's like this kind of like exploration game, and just kind of watching her play it was pretty awesome. There's a ton of good AAA game studios out there, but I don't think any one of every depending on the project, certain ones stand out over other ones. But yeah, I might have rattled off some more traditional stuff. Dave, how do you feel?
Yeah, so I mean, I one that kind of is a little like close to me is like Gearbox with Borderlands 3 because I felt like they were one of the first studios to really kind of push on stylized gaming. And you know, working at EA and working at Robomoto, like in that time, like we all had lots of technical challenges of, you know, working with engines, creating engines, and like software and tools and stuff to create games. And I remember Gearbox at one point on Borderlands, they decided and they kind of publicly said like, hey, we're not a technology company, we're a game company. And they were one of the first studios where like they shelved kind of like trying to make their own tools and their own engines to just like adopt like Unreal to make a great stylized game rather than put all the time of trying to make an engine to create the game. And so that was like pretty cool. So I like that. And plus I still like Borderlands because it's like pretty creative and against, I like stylized games that are changing things and really pushing on visual elements. I like a lot of mobile games, not really AAA, but things like Monument Valley, where it's just like this whole new design and concept style that's just very different and refreshing. Being in the industry so long, you see so many like photorealistic stuff. You're like, okay, cool. Like one game looks like the next, but like how are companies really pushing on the visuals and creating new styles?
Yeah, the visuals definitely got to lend itself to what the game's trying to communicate. I want to add on to what Dave said. With Borderlands, I actually feel like I can't remember my timing, but we tried to do style of texture, line art stuff in the Marvel game we never released that Borderlands did achieve. So basically,
Right.
we tried it, it didn't work, but the Gearbox guys did it right. We were trying to do the same thing with our Tony Hawk games, is basically like kind of like use the shader to do like the outline style feel and stuff. But it didn't work. We spent too much of our time doing things that we should have spent, like, you know, just getting an engine and just going through it. So that being said, let's open up the Q&A to the audience. I think you guys will be able to raise your hands. If you click raise your hands, I'll allow you to talk to you guys and ask questions. Ooh, cool. Somebody has raised their hand. Let me find out. Oh, okay. Allowed to talk. Billy, can you hear us? Or we can't hear you.
Hello.
Hey.
Hey, Billy.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hi. Oh, cool. Thanks, guys. I just wanted to know, I had some connection issues in the beginning, so I'm not sure if you went over this, but when you're looking at a lot of game portfolios, what's the one quality or skill that you think is most commonly lacking in all the portfolios you see? What's the one thing that people need to work on the most or include the most?
Good question.
You could start.
Good question.
Yeah.
I'm going to give it to Travis first because, you know,
Okay.
Travis is half man, half amazing. So.
What's missing? I mean, honestly, it's just that level of finish, like that level of polish. Like, and I was guilty of this too. Like early on, is that, you know, you would get a piece like 75% done, and you could kind of tell that like a person got there, and they were like, all right, moving on. Like I'm kind of done and tired of this piece. The ones that really stand out that are amazing are the ones that like you can tell a person put a lot of time and effort and love into it to get it over the finish line, right? Those are the ones that you see when you go to art station, when you see, you know, the front page, right? Those are the ones that the people really put the time and effort into, right? So it's, I guess for me, it would just be like finished, 100% finished quality pieces. As far as like skills and stuff go, like I feel like everybody's using the same skill. Everybody's everybody's got the same kind of skills. Everybody's using the same kind of tools, right? Everybody's using, for modeling, ZBrush and Maya, Max maybe, with ZBrush, stuff like that. Like people have all the tools. That information is pretty available. Like there's no magic tool that you can use. No magic bullet. It's just the level of finish really that seems to be lacking in a lot of people's work.
Yeah, and I think just kind of the same thing where there's a level of finish which is also tied to just like 2D foundation and like applying those rules to the work that you're doing. In my experience of looking at portfolios, like especially either student portfolios, it's like modeling things without finishing things. So things that like are incomplete, we're like, oh, here's a mesh of some sort, and it's just like gray, or just something that looks incomplete. So things on your portfolio, like when we look at it, things should be finished, because when you work on a game or you work on a project, like you finish everything. So like showing that you're able to complete something is huge. So seeing a site or a portfolio that has a bunch of things that are just like bits and pieces, or like just gray box things, or things that just look incomplete, are incomplete. And that basically that's just telling the person looking at it is like, I don't finish things. So like if you're gonna do a model, like model texture light, render it, or put it in Marmoset or whatever. If you're doing a character, like, model it, put your texture, same thing, like make it complete. Whether if it's like industry par or just what the level that you're at least it's complete and you can show that.
And if you're gonna make a character, pose the character. Don't just throw up a T-pose.
No T-poses for you, Travis.
Yeah, no T-poses.
Because part of what you're looking for is the ability to tell a story, right? Like, tell a story. Like, take the extra time, pose that character, light it in an interesting way so that end piece tells a story, right? So that'll check that box of the visionary, right? Who's the person that's telling you the story? Who's the person that's got something unique and interesting to say? It's not just saying like, hey, I can copy this concept art and make it into 3D. Like, bleh. Like I can hire tons of outsourcers in different countries. They'll do that for a quarter of the price of what anyone in the US can. So yeah, show me how you're going to do something different than what these guys are going to do.
Yeah, so I'm going to add to the front end of what these guys are saying. One of the things I actually really enjoy seeing in portfolios that I don't see a lot of is, number one, we do want finished work, but I love seeing it when people pose and show their process from step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? So then as a director or as somebody hiring, I understand that this person knows how to go from like one step A to Z, and then that means that I can see them thinking, I can see them like creating and stuff in my head. So
no matter what level you're at, whenever you do a piece, you should document and make tutorials and tips and tricks and things like that based on like what you're learning in your process. Like make a tutorial based on what your process is currently. Like document your process, share it with the community, because there's somebody, you may think that you don't know more than someone else and you can't teach someone, but there's always someone that's coming up behind you that doesn't know what you know, that you can share with and engage with. And you'd be surprised like the people that are in the industry that may see that and not know that and not know whatever it is that you learn, and may take it and be like, hey, that's a cool thing. And then when you're interviewing down the road, you might be like, oh, you're the guy that made this tutorial that I picked up, because I need to do this very specific little thing about like Substance or Photoshop or whatever. That gives you a huge leg up.
Yeah. So Billy, I hope that helped answer your question. Does anybody else have anything they'd like to ask Travis or any one of us? Feel free to click the raise your hand or even type into the chat box. And I'll...
Samara. Samara's got a question. I know it. I can see it.
Oh, so we have a something in the chat box. Can you guys see it? It says, if you have created a game that Microsoft, EA, and Epic have taken an interest in, what are the things to think about before expecting their offer to develop and market?
Accepting.
Yeah, so basically, like, you've made this game idea and they've come knocking. I have no idea. I don't even know, man. That's so beyond my world.
So let me get this straight. So like, you created your own IP game, is that right? If you have created a game that okay, so you made an IP and you have a publisher that's interested in it. What should you think about accepting their offer? Like, first of all, like, did they give you an offer? Like, what was the offer?
I'll actually, Finnan, I'm going to allow you to talk so you can kind of chime in. Hey, you're open to the chat. Let me see. Okay, you're open.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Great. How are you three gentlemen doing today?
Good.
Awesome.
Good. Yeah.
That's good. That's good. I wanted to ask if you've got an opportunity to pitch to all three companies, and they have taken somewhat of a vested interest in your game, and they've all given you separate offers, but you want to make sure that whatever game or whatever publisher company you want to go with is the best option. In your experience, even working at EA, which I didn't know before that, you guys had worked there, before I asked you, what are things to think about before accepting one of those offers?
Well, that's a really good question. So, so if you have an IP or something that a publisher is interested in, like first thing you need to do is probably get yourself some sort of IP lawyer, because that's a thing. So, protecting yourself, protecting your IP. So like if you do have these talks with them and like options do come onto the table, it's like how does that unfold for you and your interest in it? Like things like licensing, royalties, how does that all play out? And that's something that's almost beyond I think maybe what we can answer here, but definitely you have to protect yourself and your interest and your IP. And the only way to do that is kind of legally to help with that. So, and even to get into the opportunity to pitch with them, which is great if that happens, really have a pitch put together. So, if you do get the opportunity to pitch to them, when you're in there and you have their time, really designing a pitch and getting feedback on it and really putting a lot of effort into that time and making a really compelling pitch with great supporting assets, graphics, story, and however you need to pitch that to them. So you basically want to go in there and melt their faces off. So if there is an offer, you have some legal backing, if they give you an offer, having a lawyer look at it is it a good deal? If you have 3 offers on the table, which would be super amazing, but what does that look like in your interest and working with them? And of course, a process like that is not going to be very cut and dry. There'll probably be a lot of back and forth. They're going to be revising contracts, and there's things there's a lot of legalities in IP. So that's why there are IP lawyers out there. It's obviously the day to do that kind of thing, especially across the board with games and things like shows on Netflix and animated series and all these IP content is just being absorbed like crazy. So now is the time to really put that together, but you need to cover your bases for your own interests of how to protect your IP so people don't either take it or just do things with it that you don't want to happen.
Yeah, to add to that too, when it comes to stuff like that, I think that one of the things, yes, talking to a lawyer is very important, but that lawyer, and actually, if you find somebody else that could help advise you in the business part of it, some of these deals have probably happened already, so you could probably find data on what was offered to people from different companies. Some are public, some are not public, but those are the kinds of things that if you speak to a lawyer, and actually I don't know if you guys know Ross Hennerman from the IGDA, he's a video game lawyer. You can find him on LinkedIn. If you want his information, we can ping you with it afterwards. He could probably definitely give you a level of advice that you might be looking for when it comes to kind of moving something like this forward.
Yep.
To keep this moving along, I have a question from Ryan, and he's asking, I'm finding it difficult finding entry-level positions. Any suggestions?
Yeah, this is kind of the thing. I mean, just do really good work and apply for mid-level positions and senior positions. Yeah, I mean, don't be discouraged by places posting higher level positions, because honestly, a lot of times they're posting that because that's what they want, but they can't necessarily find it. So if you feel like you can check the boxes on the job description, don't worry about whether it's a senior position or a mid-level position. Go ahead and apply for it. Give it a shot. The other thing is You know, what market are you in? Are you in, you know, LA, you know, Seattle, San Francisco, some places like that? Like, those are the places where it's going to be easier because when they hire junior starting positions, unless you're a super rock star, they're going to hire local. They're going to hire somebody that doesn't require them investing money to get them there. They, especially the junior position, like with higher level positions, they're willing to, you know, throw out some money to like get the person there. But you know, especially with those junior positions, it's tougher. So you really have to be nearby. So if you don't have studios nearby to apply to, you've got to get close, or you've got to like really up your portfolio. And it's tough, man. I mean, there's no easy answer to it because it's, you know, if you have to move out there, like hardly any of those places are cheap places to live. So yeah, I mean, you just got to do what you got to do to get there.
Yeah, to kind of add to that too, Travis is right. A lot of the times, even when I'm posting positions at my current company, it's not always, we're looking for something, but if you do apply and you have a solid portfolio, but you might be a level below, we'll still talk. You know, like there's still the flexibility. You just have to make sure, you know, you have a very, very good cover letter. You got to make sure you're communicating right, you're broadcasting right, and you're showing quality work as well. So I'm not going to dive too far into it. We have some more questions that have popped up on the Q&A. I think Omen says, how do you break into the industry when most studios, even small ones, that post positions are for senior level, or at least want you to have worked on one AAA game previously? This is very similar to the last one we just answered, but I'll kind of throw it to Dave maybe.
Yeah, so like, I guess if the position, is it asking for entry level? Is it entry level position, or is it a senior position? So it's not that like a senior position might be out of the question. Again, I think it's based on your work and then like your potential and like, can you do what they're asking you to do? You know, so when you look at the job position and, you know, there's the description and there's like the day-to-day. So can you achieve all of those? So that's something to consider. And then like if it's entry level, like look at the posting and it's like, ask yourself, can you do these things confidently? So like that's kind of should identify like what you might need to work on. If you know, it's almost like a checkbox, like, oh yeah, I can model. Oh, I can do this. And then if there's some portion of it where you're like, I've never really done that before, but I'm super interested in learning that. And so that might be something that you could talk to. And again, like how we've talked about connections and networking, you know, part of finding jobs and the easiest way into a job is knowing somebody there. So like doing some like LinkedIn research. And this is something that we talk about in our coaching, where like, how do you find these connections? And they don't always have to be like a first connection. It's just finding a way to talk to somebody at that company to get your portfolio and like your package in front of somebody. Yeah. So, because once you talk to somebody, that's when like opportunities can happen that don't necessarily fall into one specific bucket. It comes down to your voice and speaking with them at that point.
Yeah. So we have two more. We have two more questions after this, Travis. So you go first, and I have two more questions. And one is very, very relevant to what we're doing.
Real quick, that applies to both these questions is, you know, and kind of what Dave said, do a postmortem on LinkedIn. Go to LinkedIn, find the studio where you know, you're looking to work, or these positions you're going to apply to, and look at the people that work there. Look at places they've worked in the past, because a lot of times these studios will hire from what are called feeder studios. They'll hire from smaller studios that have the kind of artists they're looking for. All right. So then you want to apply to those smaller studios and get into those studios, knowing that the end goal is to get to that the higher up studio, right? So you just keep following it back until you find that small enough studio. Also, when you start, you know, play the long game, be clever. You know, reach out to these people, ask them to look at your work. You know, start a conversation with them, and when they give you feedback on your work, and when you talk to them about your work, go back and implement that feedback and actually, you know, act on what they said you should act on in your portfolio, and then come back and say, hey, I did these changes. What do you think? That I can't tell you how many people reach out to me on LinkedIn with you know, hey, you know, I'm applying to this job, whatever, and I saw you work here. You know, can you give me a recommendation? Or, you know, blah blah blah. Can you look at my portfolio? And I never hear from them again. Like, I get bombarded all the time with these people, and I guarantee you, the person that came to me and kept talking to me and kept you know implementing the feedback that I you know, gave them, that says a lot to me about who that person is and what their work ethic is like.
Yeah, to add to the feeder studio thing, there are a lot of studios that do support larger games. Like you can find a place that does Call of Duty work if you want to work at the studio that does Call of Duty, but you'll get recognized that way. Again, last two questions. I have one from Billy again, and this is very relevant. One more question for the panel, and after this we'll have another one, and for Chimirus in general. Do you guys ever do portfolio reviews for those needing a pro's advice for their work, maybe through Instagram or through webinars and such? Dave, did you want to take this question?
Well, should we bypass this after the next?
Actually, that's
question?
A good point.
So
I do. Yeah, we'll. So Billy,
we will come back to this in a moment.
We'll come back to this. Yeah, but I want to actually click on Samara. Samara, let me unmute you. You had you're going to be the second to last question.
I knew you had a question.
Yeah, we knew it. Go ahead, Samara. We don't hear you. Okay, so maybe you hopped off for a minute, Samara. All right, so Samara, if you do have a question, post it into the chat and we'll address it after the next phase, unless you're on there right now. Okay, we don't hear you right now, but hit us up on the chat and we'll address it. So, all right, Dave.
Okay, so Billy, you're talking about, do we offer like pro advice on our work? And like, definitely that's something that we do. And kind of the purpose of this webinar is to kind of offer up like our coaching services. So Roger will bring up our little package website here. Sure. But, one thing that we do is we have Master Your Portfolio. And so what that does is basically we coach you through developing your package, your portfolio, and like how you curate your work and like how you put your best foot forward for applying to jobs, which really makes a difference. And it's based off of like our experience in the industry of both hiring and working through it. So like in this interview, we've uncovered a lot of demands like that the industry has for applying for game jobs. And the thing with game jobs now is it's obviously much more saturated and highly competitive, which is totally fine because there's more opportunities now than ever before. They're just limited, but you can get it in different ways. And again, like I mentioned, where you're head to head with somebody, like what are these things that you can do to stand out from that? Because, companies look at you as an investment. And so you have to look at your career as sort of like an investment and like, what are these things that are going to give you that edge to get you that salary of like, $50, $60, $70, $80,000, over years in the long run, because like, that's the money that you're trying to get and the career that you want, that you're passionate about. Master Your Portfolio coaching, and then we have a pro career branding coaching. But like, in order to do that, we really want to connect with you and learn more about your career goals and like if we can help you and if it's a good fit to work together. So for everybody that's attending this call, like we want to hear from you. We want to potentially work with you. So we're offering a free discovery call of an hour where we just talk with you about your goals and like where you want to be and where you're at and if we can help you or not, because this is something we were all at in one place in our career. We started out like getting into the industry, and although it might be a while ago, we realized that it's harder now, but we want to share our knowledge with you to get you that job, because like we want you doing what you love to do, because it's really rewarding and it's awesome to work for a game company. I would say 90% of my best friends were just from companies that I worked at, like Roger and like Travis, and even people at these studios like Gearbox and Microsoft and Epic, like, and Naughty Dog. Like we all have friends from EA that work there, like Todd Foster's over at Naughty Dog, and he's like a, environment artist extraordinaire working on pretty much everything that they do. So it's just awesome. Like we're really connected too. And, we do offer portfolio services, but part of what we do too is we have like an internal group of professionals that help to like coach, but also give feedback on. So it's one thing to post to a forum where you might get flamed and all this stuff. Like everybody with us is like, we will give you meaningful feedback on things and coach you through applying it and getting it set up and then making yourself ready to do so. But I just wanted to say, because we have to wrap up here, we're a little bit over an hour, but thanks again for Travis for joining us. Like it's always awesome having you around, and you're bringing your knowledge and dropping your talents on people. Always awesome. So, and then thanks to Roger for joining us on this call and being Mr. Sunshine on it all. But so definitely go to our website. Book a discovery call. We have spaces limited. We can't facilitate everybody, but definitely if you can, book a coaching call. We're good to discover what you're talking about if there's potential to work together. And, you know, we hope you enjoyed this webinar. We want to do more of these things. And if you have suggestions, please reach out. If you have questions, please reach out. We will definitely send out a survey for some feedback on how we can make these better too. And if you want specific people that might even be on here, the door's kind of open for stuff. So thanks again for joining us. Check out our website, book a discovery call. We look forward to speaking with you. And thanks again for joining us tonight with Chimirus.
Small thing, if you need to reach us, you can always email us, but you see this little cool chat window? If you type in here, we get the message. We'll write right back.
Yes, it is the gateway to our mobile device where we can answer you while we're eating pizza in a restaurant or something.
Absolutely. All right, thank you everybody for stopping by. We hope to see you again, and we hope to see you guys on discovery calls as well too.
Thanks everyone.
Thanks, Travis.
Thanks, guys. See ya.
Bye.